Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabe. I welcome you to Reproductive System. What are the organs that are part of the male genital system? The organ that comprises the male genital system are the testicles, epididymides, vas deferens, vesicles, ejaculatory duct, prostate, bulbourethral glands, urethra, and the penis. Concerning reproduction, what is the function of the testicles? Testicles are male gonads, that is, the organs where the production of gametes takes place. In human beings, the gametes are made by meiosis that occurs in the testicles. After passing the epididymis, through which structure do sperm cells go until exteriorization? After leaving the epididymis, the testicle sperm cell enter the vas deferens. After that, they receive secretion from the seminal vesicles and gather from right and left side in the ejaculatory duct that passes inside the prostate. They also get secretion from the prostate and the bulbourethral glands and then go through the urethra inside the penis to the exterior. What is the function of the secretions of the prostate, seminal-vesicle, bulbourethral glands in reproduction? This secretion, along with the sperm cell from the testicles, form the semen. The secretion have function of nourishing the sperm cells, serving them as fluid, means of propagation. The basic pH of the seminal fluid is also neutralized the acid secretion of the vagina, allowing survival of the sperm cells in the vaginal environment after copulation. What are the endocrine glands that regulate sexual activities in males? How does this regulation work? What are the involved hormones? In male, sexual activities are regulated by endocrine glands, hypophysis, the pituitary gland, adrenals, and gonads, the testicles. The follicle-stimulating hormone secreted by adenohypophysis acts upon the test, stimulating the spermatogenesis. The luteinizing hormone, another adenohypophyseal hormone, stimulates the production of testosterone by the testicles. Testosterone, whose production in intensifies after beginning of puberty, acts on several organs of the body, and it is responsible for the appearing of the male secondary sex characteristics, that is the beard, body hair, deep voice, increase of the muscle, osseous mass, maturation of genitalia, and many others. Testosterone also stimulates spermatogenesis. What are the organs that are part of the female reproductive system? The organs that constitute the female reproductive system are the ovaries, the fallopian tubes or uterine tubes, the uterus, the vagina, and the vulva. In which period of life does the formation of gametes begins in women? The meiosis that forms female gametes begins in the cell of the ovarian follicle before birth. After the beginning of puberty, under hormonal stimuli during each menstrual cycle, one of the cells is released on the surface of the ovary and meiosis resumes. Meiotic process is only concluded, however, if fecundation happens. What is the organ that releases the female gametes and the formation? How is this release triggered? What is the organ that collects the released gamete? The organ that liberates the female gamete is the ovary, the female gonad. The releasing of the oocyte is the response of a hormonal stimuli. The immature egg cell, still an oocyte, falls into the abdominal cavity and is picked by the fallopian tubule, the uterine tube or the oviduct, the tubular structure that connects to the ovary with the uterus. What are the anatomical relationships between the organs of the female reproductive system from the external vulva or to the ovaries? The external female genitalia called the vulva. Vulva is the external opening of the vaginal canal or vagina. The vagina is a copulation organ of the females, and its posterior extremity communicates with the uterus through the uterine cervix. The uterus is divided into two portions, the cervix and the uterine cavity. The lateral walls of the uterine foetus communicate with the fallopian tubes. Other extremities of each fallopian tubes end in fibria, forming fringes in the abdominal cavity. Between the uterine tube and the ovary, there are still intra-abdominal space. What is the menstrual cycle? The menstrual cycle is the periodic succession of interaction between hormones and the organs of the female reproductive system that after the beginning of puberty regulates the release of the female gametes and prepares the uterus for vegetation and pregnancy. What are the endocrine glands involved in menstrual cycle? What are the hormones in action? The endocrine glands that secrete hormone involved in menstrual cycle are hypophysis or pituitary gland and the ovaries. The hormones from adenohypophysis are follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And the hormones from the ovary are estrogen and progesterone. What event marks the beginning of the menstrual cycle? What is the blood connection of the follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, estrogen, and progesterone in this phase of the cycle? By convention, the menstrual cycle begins the day the menses begins. Menses is the endometrial hemorrhage excreted through the vaginal canal. At these days, the hormone follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, estrogen, and progesterone are in low concentration. After menses, what is the hormone that influences the maturation of the ovarian follicle? Maturation of the ovarian follicle after menses is stimulated by the action of follicle-stimulating hormone. The hormone secreted by the growing ovarian follicle. What is the action of that hormone upon the uterus? The follicles that are growing after menses secrete estrogen. These hormones act upon the uterus, stimulating the thickening of the endometrium, internal mucosa of the uterus. What is the relationship between estrogen level and luteinizing hormone level in menstrual cycle? What is the function of luteinizing in the menstrual cycle? And when does its blood concentration reach the peak? The increase in blood concentration of estrogen with the growing of the ovarian follicle causes hypophysis to secrete luteinizing hormone. In this phase, luteinizing hormone acts with the follicle-stimulating hormone, promoting the maturation of the follicle. That at the 14th day, rupture releases the female gamete, which is ovulation. After the release of the ovum, luteinizing hormone acts stimulating the formation of corpus luteum, a structure made from the remaining follicular mass. Luteinizing concentration is at maximum at the 14th day of the cycle. What are the hormones that promote the release of the female gamete from the follicle? At which day of the menstrual cycle does the phenomenon happen? What is this event called? The hormones that promote the release of the ovum from the follicle have follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormones, found in maximum blood concentration around the 14th day of the cycle. Release of the female gamete from the ovary is called ovulation. Ovulation happens around the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. How does the female gamete move from the ovary to the uterus? The female gamete released from the ovary falls in the surrounding abdominal cavity and is collected by the fallopian tube. The internal epithelium of the uterine tube is ciliated cells that move the ovum and the fecundated egg cell towards the uterus. How long after ovulation must ovulation occur to be effective? If fecundation does not occur approximately 24 hours after ovulation, the released ovum often dies. What is the structure into which the follicle is transformed after ovulation? What is the importance of that structure in the menstrual cycle? The follicle that released the ovum suffer the action of luteinizing hormone is transformed into corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is very important because it secretes estrogen and progesterone. These hormones prepare the uterine mucosa, also known as the endometrium, for nidation, that is implantation of the zygote in the uterine wall. The embryonic development, since they stimulate thickening of the mucosa tissue, increases its vascularity and make the appearance of the uterine glycogen-producing glands. What is the importance of the uterine glycogen-producing glands? The uterine gland produces glycogen that can be degraded into glucose to nourish the embryo before complete development of the placenta. How does the hypothesis corpus luteum negative feedback work? What is the name given to atropine corpus luteum after the feedback process? After ovulation, the estrogen and progesterone secretion from the corpus luteum inhibits hypophyseal follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone secretion. This happens by inhibition of the GnRH, gonadotrophin-releasing hormone, a hypothalamic hormone. The blood concentration of this adenohypophyseal hormone falls to the basal level. Again, as the luteinizing hormone lowers, the corpus luteum, luteum means yellow, becomes atrophic and turns into corpus albicans, white. With the regression of the corpus luteum, the production of estrogen and progesterone ceases. In hormonal terms, why does menses occur? Menses is the endometrium monthly discrimination that occurs as the estrogen and progesterone level falls after the regression of the corpus luteum. Because of these hormones, mainly progesterone, can no longer support and maintain the thickening of the endometrium. What is the explanation for the bleeding that accompanies menses? The hemorrhage that accompanies menses occurs because the endometrium is richly vascularized tissue. The rupture of the blood vessels of the uterine mucosa during menstrual discrimination causes the bleeding. Which are the phases of the menstrual cycle? The menstrual cycle is divided into two main phases: follicular, the menstrual phase, and luteal, the secretory phase. The menstrual phase begins at the first day of menses and lasts until ovulation around the 14th day. Luteal phase begins after ovulation and ends when menses begins around the 28th day. Including the main events and hormonal changes, how can the menstrual cycle be described? One can imagine a cycle like an analog clock, at which 0 o'clock is the beginning and the ending of the menstrual cycle. At 6 o'clock corresponds to the 14th day of the cycle. At 0 o'clock, menses and so menstrual cycle begins. Follicle-stimulating hormone blood level begins to increase. At around 2 o'clock, the maturing follicle and the follicle-stimulating hormone action are already secreting estrogen, and the endometrium is thickening. At 3 o'clock, estrogen is intensely stimulating the increase of luteinizing hormone blood level. At 6 o'clock, that is the 14th day, luteinizing hormone is at its maximum concentration, and follicle-stimulating hormone also at high level to promote ovulation. Luteinizing hormone then stimulates the formation of corpus luteum. At 7 o'clock, corpus luteum is already secreting a great amount of estrogen and progesterone, and the endometrium thickens even more, concomitant lowering the follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone occur, with the increasing of the ovarian hormones. At 11 o'clock, reduced luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone level make the corpus turn into corpus albicans. The production of estrogen and progesterone ceases. The endometrium regresses. At 0 o'clock, again, that is the 28th day, the endometrium disquaments and the new menstrual cycle begins. In general, what is the phase of the menstrual cycle when copulation may lead to fecundation? Although this is not a rule, to be effective, fecundation in general must occur within about 24 hours after ovulation. That occurs around the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. Fecundation may occur even if copulation took place 3 days before ovulation, since the male gametes remain viable for about 72 hours within the female reproductive system. The fertile period of the woman, however, considered the period from the 7th day before ovulation to the 7th day after ovulation. What is the part of the female reproductive system where fecundation occurs? Fecundation generally occurs in the fallopian tubes, but it can take place within the uterus. There are cases when fecundation occurs even before the ovum enters the uterine tube. In fact, that may lead to severe medical condition known as abnormal pregnancy. How does sexual arousal mechanism in women facilitate fecundation? During sexual arousal in women, vagina secretes substances to neutralize the acidity, thus allowing survival of the sperm cells within it. During the female fertile period, hormones make the mucus that cover the internal surface of the uterus less viscous to help the passage of the sperm cells to the uterine tubes. During copulation, the uterine cervix advances inside the vagina to facilitate the entering of the male gametes through the cervical canal. What is nidation? In which phase of menstrual cycle does nidation occur? Nidation is the implantation of the embryo in the uterus. Nidation occurs around the 7th day after fecundation, that is the 7th to 8th day after ovulation. Obviously, it occurs only if fecundation also occurs. Since it occurs in the luteal phase, the progesterone level is high and the endometrium is in its best condition to receive the embryo. What is tubal pregnancy? Many times, fecundation takes place in the fallopian tubes. Generally, newly formed zygotes is taken to the uterus, where nidation and the embryonic development occurs. In some cases, however, the zygote cannot go down the uterus, and the embryo implants itself in the uterine tube tissue, characterizing the tubal pregnancy. Tubal pregnancy is a severe clinical condition, since often tubes rupture during gestation, causing hemorrhage and even death of the woman. The most common treatment of tubal pregnancy has been surgery. How do hormonal tests that detect pregnancy work? Laboratory tests to test pregnancy commonly tests for human chronic gonadotrophin concentration in the blood or urine sample. If the level of this hormone is abnormally high, pregnancy is likely. During hypophysis, ovarian endocrine axis work in the same way during pregnancy as in non-pregnant women. If pregnancy does not occur, how does another menstrual cycle begin? The function of the hypophysis is altered during pregnancy. Since estrogen and progesterone level remain elevated during gestation period, production of gonadotrophin-releasing hormone from the hypothalamus is inhibited. The lack of gonadotrophin-releasing hormone thus inhibits the secretion of follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from the hypophysis, and the new menstrual cycle does not begin. If pregnancy does not occur, lowering of estrogen and progesterone levels stimulates the production of gonadotrophin-releasing hormone by the hypothalamus. This hormone then hastens the adenohypophysis secretion of follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, and in their turn they stimulate the maturation of the follicle and the beginning of the new menstrual cycle. What is the endocrine function of the placenta? The placenta, besides being the organ through which exchange of substances between the mother and the fetus is done, also has a function of secreting estrogen and progesterone to keep high level of these hormones during pregnancy. The placenta will secrete other hormones like human placental lactogen that act similarly to hypophyseal hormones that regulate reproduction, the human chronic gonadotrophin, How do contraceptive pills generally work? Contraceptive pills generally contain hormone estrogen and progesterone. If taken daily, the fourth day after mens, abnormal elevation of these hormones acts upon the hypophysis, hypothalamus endocrine, inhibiting the follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing secretion. These hormones then do not reach their normal high level during menstrual cycle. Ovulation does not occur. Treatment with contraceptive pill must be initiated under medical supervision. What are the common contradictions with the contraceptive pills? There are medical reports associating the use of contraceptive pills with vomiting, nausea, vertigo, headaches, hypertension, and other pathogenic conditions. Some research has attempted to relate the medical ingestion of estrogen and progesterone with increased propensity of cardiovascular diseases. Like infarction, stroke, and thrombosis, and to malignant neoplastic cancer. Doctor must always be asked about the risk and the benefit of contraceptive pill prior to use. What are the most common methods of male and female surgical sterilization? Vasectomy is the most common surgical sterilization in men. Vasectomy, the vessel deferens inside the scrotum is sectioned and closed at a section which will forbid sperm cells to follow the ejaculatory tube, but still allowing the release of seminal fluid during ejaculation. Surgical sterilization in women is often done by lateral tubal ligation. With tubal ligation, the ovum does not pass to the uterus, so the sperm cells do not reach it. How does contraceptive diaphragm work? What are the limitations of this contraceptive method? Contraceptive diaphragm is an artifact-made latex or plastic, and when placed in the vaginal fluid covers the uterine cervix, forbidding the passage of sperm cell through the cervical canal. To be more effective, the diaphragm needs to be used together with the spermicides. This method, however, does not prevent sexually transmitted diseases, STDs. Why is the use of condoms not just a contraceptive method, but also a healthy protection behavior? The use of condoms, besides being an effective contraceptive method, also help to prevention of diseases caused by sexually transmitted agent, STDs, like syphilis, gonorrhea, HPV, human papilloma virus, that may lead to genital cancers, infestation, HIV infection, and others. What is the normal duration of the menstrual cycle? How does the calendar contraceptive method work? The normal duration of menstruation cycle is 28 days, but it can vary among different women in different cycles of the same woman. In the calendar contraceptive method, the date 14th, N-14, is taken considering the number of days of the normal menstruation cycle in the woman, generally 28. The safety margin is 3 plus or 3 minus refers to the days around 14th, N-14th, that intercourse should be avoided to prevent pregnancy. This method is not exempt from failures. A doctor must always be consulted before relying on the contraceptive method. How is the ovulation date estimated with the control of the woman's body temperature? One method to estimate the exact ovulation date is the daily control of the body temperature taken always under the same conditions. The ovulation day, the body temperature often increases about 0.5 degrees centigrade. What is the contraceptive mechanism of the IUD? IUD, intrauterine device, is a piece of plastic coated with copper that is inserted within the uterus by the doctor. The copper is then gradually released. IUD may last for 5 to 10 years, and since it has a spermicidal action, sperm cells are destroyed before fecundation. Beside this mechanism, the movement of IUD inside the uterus causes slight endometrium inflammation that leads to preventive nidation. Generally, how does the male animal release that the female is receptive to copulation? Most vertebrate species with internal fecundation, the female have reproductive cycle with fertile period. During this period, the female secretes pheromones, odoriferous substances that attract the male of the same species from the skin and the mucosa. The presence of the male individual and his pheromones also stimulate the release of pheromone by the female. Many animals also use pheromone for territorial demarcation and for signal transmission between individuals about the location of the danger and food. What is parthenogenesis? Parthenogenesis is the reproduction or formation of a new individual from the egg cell, but without fecundation by the male gametes. According to the species, individuals born by parthenogenesis may be male or female or any sex. The bee that drones is a single male bee, is haploid, born by the parthenogenesis, while the female, the queen and the worker, are diploid. Thank you very much for participating in reproductive system. Please do like, share, and subscribe.